The most important safe house in the history of the open world games is the Ocean View hotel room from Vice City. It is an artistic evolutionary leap from the safe houses of GTA 3, and every open world safe house I have encountered since has only been a logical expansion of this concept. One time I went back to the apartment to check the pickups that I've unlocked, and found bundles of cash laid across the bed that weren't previously there. Playing alone, without the internet forums or YouTube, this felt magical and a little bit mysterious. Like a rudimentary conversation happening with a bit of lag between me and whoever designed this. A change in the world caused by my action has always been a part of the video game magic for me. Wondrous frame of causality, the video game equivalent of the ribbon of dreams metaphor Orson Welles used to describe film. This isn't just interactivity, it's a specific kind of consequence of interactivity possible only in a video game. I'm not talking about something immediate as killing the light or crashing a car, but a change that suggests a more profound connection between the player and the clockwork of the in-game world. This minute memorabilia feature, seemingly decorative and inconsequential, will later become a design principle, where changes in the world, often influenced by your decisions, will reflect themes of the game and in the function of time's passing become dynamic environmental storytelling, and evolve further into more complex storytelling techniques. Let's examine the history and evolution of this design quirk across the Rockstar titles. Safe House was a logical feature in an open world game where all your progress depended on it. Without checkpoints or autosave, a special bond was created with that space. In GTA 3 you could only briefly view the interior of the modest safe house in Portland, yet it still had identity. Perfectly fitting your status as a low-level criminal just escaped from prison, it contained some basic homeware and a poster embodying the one big job then I retire fantasy. This space wasn't just functional, it was personal and unlike anything else in the whole Liberty City. As a kid, I always wished it was properly accessible. I just needed that extra connection to the space that I revisited after passing every mission for fear of losing progress. For the same reason, I used to spend a lot of time in Salvatore's living room, one of the rare accessible interiors that was stylized. That I wasn't alone in this urge for open-world games to have layers in the form of enterable interiors is proven by the fact that interior mods are popular across the GTA community. But this archetypal Portland safe house is interesting for another reason. It could be slightly altered if you completed a side mission. When you destroy a triad fish factory and it remains a ruin throughout the rest of the game, that is a necessary consequence of the bare minimum realism. But when you complete the final payphone mission for El Burro and stacks of his magazines appear at the safe house, that is something else entirely. The objective of the mission is to collect said stacks as they fly out of an escaping van. Either Claude had taken some for himself as a reminder of his adventure into adult magazine publishing, or El Burro himself had sent the copies as a thank you for their fruitful cooperation. Whichever way you connect the dots, it creates a small story. That other safe houses didn't have such a gimmick only solidified the special status of that iconic first 3D home in the series. What I loved about it is that this was such an unnecessary addition. The mission is not required to complete the story and the magazines are not mentioned in any way. It's left up to the player to notice it and decide how to relate to it. This concept, this creative impulse, would keep evolving with other Rockstar titles. In Vice City, the save point is actually in the lobby, so there's no need to go upstairs unless you want to swap clothes or pick up firearms. But finally getting an enterable safe house. As a kid, I had this urge to go upstairs periodically to check out the room and its details. I remember being absorbed by the aesthetic of this space. It embodied the spirit of the era and looked like a place someone as cool as Tommy would live in. As I was repeating this ritual, constantly drawn to the most personal interior on the map, I began to notice interesting objects appearing in the room, and for most of them there is an obvious connection to one of the missions. In order to complete the party mission, you first have to collect an appropriate suit in order to attend the meeting with the most important city players. If you return to the room after the mission, you'll find a suit bag hung on the dresser. This feels as if the makers of the game are communicating to you in a way. After killing Diaz, a broken hidden package appears on the bar, revealing what these enigmatic statues are used for. Beating Phil in a shooting contest spawns a trophy. Completing the bank heist spawns a hockey mask that's part of the bank job outfit. Tommy must have kept it as a souvenir after the heist. My imagination ran wild. During the mission Hit the Courier, Tommy gets his hands on money plates that enable him to print his own cash, which you then find on the bed. Once Phil blows himself up while drunk, Tommy takes some of the boomshine responsible for it to his room. The same principle was applied to Vercetti Estate. Tommy took the helicopter toy box and the controller with him. He took some pizza after finishing deliveries with the pizza boy. He displayed trophies for different racing challenges he's won. After completing the movie production string of missions, 2 movie posters will appear alongside some of the paparazzo shots. After the assassination of a Haitian lord during a funeral, Tommy took a shovel as a souvenir, and he generally appears not to have treated the place as well as Diaz used to. Most of the time you are passively discovering stories that have already taken place, and this kind of storytelling has pretty much been perfected. Here you at least initiate a change to appear in the world. In a way, it is a very rudimentary form of dynamic environmental storytelling. This mission-based memorabilia serves as a reminder of what you had to go through as Tommy. These souvenirs of adventures and challenges synthesize different concepts. They are a sort of an Easter egg, visual decor, storytelling, memorabilia. In a way, they also serve as stats that track your progress diegetically. We see a similar concept with the Frankie outfit, which you get for achieving 100% completion. Seeing that hockey mask there, it felt as if it embodied the whole planning of the heist and its execution. Just by looking at it, it would evoke that whole string of missions. From this point on, Save Point and Save House were not the same for me. As with El Burro's magazines, this whole apartment with its appearing memorabilia didn't need to exist at all. Functionally, the lobby would have been enough. It is a specific design choice that pertains exclusively to the aesthetic aspect of the experience, rather than the functional one. After Vice City, this idea kind of disappears for a while. We see it in the PSP version of Liberty City's stories, where after finishing the Noodle Punk Odd Job, boxes of noodles appear inside a Portland safe house. But then Bully adopted the concept with 40 room trophies directly tied to the storyline and side missions. Pass Biology 5 and Jimmy takes a skeleton model to his room. Help Ernest with his class president campaign and his election poster will spawn. Pass Geography 5 and Jimmy steals a globe. Smash all the gnomes and one statue will appear on the bookcase. Defeat a clique boss and Jimmy will take their distinct clothes as a souvenir. This changes the look of Jimmy's room and adds a lot of character to it. By the end of the game, it's a proper mess filled with memorabilia of various mischief. They summarize the whole experience and shrink the map into a single room. Other titles experimented with similar concepts, giving you control over how the safe house looks. In Scarface, you can decorate Tony's mansion with various luxury items, and even though they aren't directly tied to the story, they are tonally and thematically fitting. The purpose of making money in this game is to buy this stuff, so in a way they are a memorabilia of Tony's trips to the islands to smuggle drugs. In Sherlock Holmes Videogames, the sitting room at Baker Street contains various mementos of the duo's past adventures and episodes. Some are direct references to past games. In several titles there is a harpoon that killed the Black Peter above Watson's door, but then in Crimes and Punishments it is no longer there, because you first have to solve that case for it to appear. In Fallout 3 you can buy a dedicated bobblehead stand to display your collection, and in Fallout 4 you can mount trophies of beasts you've slain. Assassin's Creed series used to be known for hideouts with trophy rooms. In Villa Auditore you can find a model of Da Vinci's flying machine used during one of the assassinations, and portraits of assassinated targets are hung on the wall. My favorite example is the homestead from Assassin's Creed 3, where among mission-related mementos and trophies, Connor takes an object from each of his major targets, all of which are parts of their outfit. In Mafia Remake, the interior of the Salieri's bar changes as you are about to go to war with another family. One of my favorite examples is what Firewatch did with the tower space, where objects will appear as part of the decorum if you decide to take them with you, with each of the objects being tied to a particular trip or encounter. Some are infused with special meaning that connects to the story more intimately. GTA 5 went as far as introducing an option to save from the in-game phone, but the safe house became a part of the narrative more than ever before. Here they are a distinct form of environmental storytelling, closely tied to the personality of each of the protagonists. Trevor's trailer has an authentically looking trashed state. Like Trevor's speech, idle animations, or his body, this trailer is a manifestation of who he is. For a brief period in the story, while Trevor is having a love affair with his kidnappee Patricia, the borough becomes uncharacteristically tidy, as if showing a glimmer of hope that Trevor could be normal only if he sorted out his Oedipus complex. Once she leaves, the place goes back to its original state. Another interesting example of an aesthetic of space being overtaken by another is Floyd's apartment. Trevor's personality slowly consumes the fancy home. The details of this contrast are brutal. The way Trevor invades their privacy, bringing out objects, twisting their purpose, sexualizing everything in a disturbing way, is a bizarre exercise in corruption. Some missions directly affect the space. One of the couches is ruined after scouting the port. After by the book, Mr. K's tooth and tools used on him are found throughout the apartment. The best example of this is the unfortunate fate of Mr. Raspberry Jam, a teddy bear owned by Floyd. that gets mutilated until it's turned into Trevor's twisted trophy, stuck behind his car bumper for the rest of the game. An example where mission memorabilia becomes a part of the protagonist's canon vehicle. One of the big themes with Franklin is that he aspires to be a successful criminal and leave his humble origins behind. Once he does it, it takes him some time to clear out the boxes filled with his past, the reminder of where he came from. The Santa residence has the most interesting changes, and it figures into the story and Michael's character arc significantly. We find it as a somewhat functioning home of a retired criminal. It becomes progressively dirtier once his family leaves him. We get a picture of how his life goes on a downward spiral from there, and it's stereotypical. Take out food, disregard for order, not being bothered to clean up after himself, booze, dying flowers. The family drama also manifests in this space. Sometime after that, copies of Chains of Intimacy will appear throughout the house. I interpret this as Michael trying to find ideas on how to win Amanda back by staying up to date with popular trends. The Intimacy trilogy is an in-game parody of the 50 Shades phenomenon. Items on the kitchen blackboard change throughout the story and indicate that Michael genuinely aspired to be a better person in order to get his family back. Once they return, the house is clean again. This is a rather smart and subtle way to reflect complex psychology. After Michael flies out to North Yankton, a pair of tickets and a postcard appear near the staircase. Once Michael finishes his film, its poster appears next to the bedroom. Finally, if you decide to kill Michael, a for sale sign appears outside the house, closing the circle. Not all of these examples reflect equally complex or important parts of the character arc, but they are a unique form of environmental storytelling and illustrate a possibility to make it more dynamic and relevant to the story, to put more meaning into seemingly unimportant parts of the game. We see this specific form of object placement being used outside of safe houses to recap the story or bring out some of the nostalgia for returning players or tickle the imagination of new ones. Uncharted 4 has a whole chapter where you're given freedom to go through Nate's memorabilia summarizing his past adventures. Since you know he's about to rush off on another treasure hunt, these objects contrasted with a happy family home in a chapter titled A Normal Life contain an invitation from the creators for a storyful conversation with the audience. It's a laid-back chapter that communicates its message for the most part through memorabilia and shows that this concept can exist outside of safe houses of the open worlds. The relationship between brothers is an important theme in the story, and one very poignant, humanizing memento is kept for the epilogue. In a flashback chapter, the two brothers take a Polaroid photo that reflects your choice of ancient headgear. In the final chapter, Nate's daughter, while snooping around her father's past, discovers that Polaroid. Except that, based on everything that's happened in between, the photograph has a lot more significance now and is, in a way, the conclusion to the story. The setting and story of Red Dead Redemption 2 doesn't allow for traditional safe houses until the epilogue, but we still find objects throughout the camp that reveal personal backstories. Next to Arthur's bed, you'll find photographs that give Arthur a history, contextualize his current state, and will change meaning as the story progresses and various character arcs develop. Just from these photographs, we can construct a basic outline of how Arthur Morgan came to be. His father was a thief. Arthur got his looks from him, and he kept his distinct leather hat. Father's mugshot is contrasted with mother's portrait that doesn't reveal much, but the enigmatic flower is later revealed to be a good luck charm his mother used to keep, and he likes to collect it when he finds it in the wild. If you pick up on these two things, the hat and the flower have a whole new meaning in the story. Once Jim Milton takes it out for a ride, the hat is already an iconic object within the series with rich individual history. Arthur got in young with Dutch and Hosea, and his path was pretty much determined from that point forward, with them taking up the role of not just his mentors but also father figures. He carries with him the horseshoe of Boadicea, the horse he lost, and photographs of a pet dog that died, a love interest that he never forgot, and a newspaper clipping of his first heist. These memorabilia paint Arthur as a sentimental and deeply loyal, and they are simple, relevant, more poetic than anything we've seen before in a Rockstar game. It gives Arthur a past, which is something we need for his branching path to make sense. He is a man who believed in something, and you get to take it from there and shape some of his decisions to a degree made possible by various combinations and outcomes. Throughout the camp, you'll find memorabilia of other characters that reveal their background, like Bill's dishonorable discharge from the army, or the letter from Micah's brother, which help frame their personalities and behavior in specific context. While the specific mission-based memorabilia no longer seems to be on Rockstar's menu, it has evolved and merged with other concepts, making the environmental storytelling far more dynamic. This concept of subtle change initiated by the player evolved further into a more dynamic storytelling, and in Red Dead Redemption 2 it is taken to a whole new level. Similar to how Dark Souls treats unique items, they are spread out across the map and bear varying degrees of connection to Arthur's adventures. Flacco's revolver is my favorite unique variant, and each time I inspect the Mexican coat of arms on its scales, I remember the quest of having to go up in the mountains to collect the bounty. It's memorabilia that you can use. Unique outfits that require you to hunt a specific list of animals actually contain skins of those animals, memorializing the hunt. Although not an example of memorabilia, the journal feature is an interesting way to reflect on all the little stories you've come upon on your journey, and they are different based on whether Arthur or John had drawn them. These sketches and notes serve the same purpose as that hockey mask from Vice City. They memorialize a part of the experience, they encase a small story. The dynamism of environmental storytelling is upscale generally. My favorite example are the multi-part encounters that trigger an event and end up altering the micro-location. If you help the workers at the logging camp, they'll end up deforesting the area. If you help the railway foreman with his troubles, the railroad gets completed. Some of these are just logical and cosmetic updates that hide the fact that most of the map doesn't change in any way. But others are more deliberate, especially with dual protagonists in mind. Finding something as John and remembering you did it as Arthur bears a certain weight for an invested player. The memorial hole donation that you can make as Arthur and later find his name on the list of benefactors as John is especially poignant. A decision you made in time as Arthur has slightly altered the world in which John ended up living.
Well, hello, old friend.
It's a long way to go from adding objects at a safe house after a particular mission to having encounters that change the world in a thematically significant way. Shooting a store clerk in the face, then having him return later with a bandage across his head is not the best example of this, but it's a start in the right direction. I remember seeing it first in Mafia 2 back in 2010, and it made the world feel a little bit more alive and responsive. Telling stories through changes in the world initiated by the player is superior to static environmental storytelling, and is a gateway into a more dynamic storytelling overall because the player is the key to these changes. In the epilogue, you get to build the Marston home and watch as it's progressively furnished. The whole house is a sort of memorabilia of what John had to go through in order to get it. From making the deal with the devil to working the homestead. And the portrait that John and Abigail get during a date is placed above the fireplace as an example of how simple objects in proper context can be powerful symbols. Witnessing these changes, seeing objects take on a new meaning, I felt the same video game magic I had experienced as a kid seeing a hockey mask in the Ocean View hotel room. Regardless of where this is taken in the future, a small evolution of the storytelling capacity of memorabilia has already happened. Contextual objects that are pulled out of inventory menus into the game world represent a specific form of storytelling in video games. They have the power to carry meaning and story, and since they are no longer bound to a safe house, they can jump around the video game space, like Joel's watch, or his photograph, or Arthur's hat. As in life, these mementos become units of story, containers of memory, portals into the past, and symbols of the game's themes. Thank you for your time. A special thanks goes to all of my Patreon supporters whose names you can see on the screen. Have a nice day.